Meet Ash Tamor, the voice behind Ashtalks. Known for turning business, tech, and life lessons into sharp, digestible ideas, Ash has captured the attention of millions. His mission? To help people think smarter, act bolder, and elevate their mindset in a world moving faster than ever. Get ready for a powerful conversation with the creator, pushing self-growth and modern intelligence to the mainstream. Listen and watch on YouTube and across all podcast platforms.
Yes, people, welcome back to the Property Strategist Podcast. We're back with another amazing episode. Today I'm joined by somebody that I admire quite a lot. I've been following for a long time. He's going to introduce himself and then we're going to dive into this episode. But Ash, introduce yourself, bro.
Yeah, thank you, man. Pleasure to be here. I'm Ash. You might have seen or not seen my face, but my videos walking around in London, speaking about the economy, finance, economics, what's going on, a little bit of everything. So I hope this one's a good one. And as I said, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much. So typically this podcast, just to give you context as well, is a property-focused podcast. We've been running it for the last couple of years. In the last year or so, we have gone a bit quiet and reset just because we felt like it made sense to come back and do content that was relevant for the times that we're in. At the time that we started the podcast was pre-pandemic time. So as you can imagine, the economy and the state of property market was in a different place. Lower interest rates, a lot more people getting involved in property in more strategic ways, I guess. And now 5 years on, I feel like we're in a whole different place. So it makes sense to bring someone like you onto the pod to shed your expertise and your knowledge and just to really get insight into what you're thinking, basically. Before we get started with actual questions, I did want to just ask a little bit about yourself. Just, what's your background? I guess, I mean, it's hard to really summarize in less than, a minute, but what is your background and a summary of what you do and who you are, basically?
Yeah, sure. So I studied maths and economics, and I've always kind of been interested in more the economic side, but also going back to when I was a child, very interested in the news. I'd always ask, like, what's going on? Why is that happening to my parents or whoever it was? And when I'd walk past something on the street, I was always quite an inquisitive type person, saying, oh, why is that building there? What do they do, etc. So mixing that in with my degree, I went into investment banking for 10 years and therefore gained a lot of insight into how money moves, how the economy works, not just in the UK, but in the US, in Asia, how it's all kind of interconnected. And from that, I actually started, like all of us, getting into social media a bit more during COVID, watching a more consuming side of things. And randomly, actually, I follow this page in Las Vegas. I like Las Vegas, go relatively often, and it was someone who used to walk around with a camera and explain things, why that building was there or what's happening in the local Vegas economy, what's happening to the hotels, etc. And I thought, okay, that's quite a good idea, and I like talking and having a debate, so I just started putting out a few videos last year, and it kind of went from there. And the audience seemed to like it, and it grew steadily. So it came to where we are today, and that's what I'm continuing to do.
Yeah, no, I can't remember the first video I've watched of yours, to be honest. But I just remember the style of the video, which was really interesting to me. The way you would walk around and narrate some of the thoughts and some of the things that you're just kind of going through in each of your videos. And I don't know if have you ever tried to be a journalist, because you have that kind of journalistic type voice as well. I think that drew me as well to the videos as well. Like, this guy speaks very well, and he breaks down things very very simply as well. So, it'd be good to know if you had any background in journalism as well.
I didn't, but it's something again I was interested in, and watching the news when I was younger, and I used to think, oh, okay, it'd be quite good to go to these places and actually tell the story on the ground. So it's funny you say that. It was an option. It's just I guess I went into a different career once I finished my degree, and now I kind of do a bit of journalism, I guess. Not obviously to a big scale, but I do it on my platforms.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. You're kind of the new age news, basically, as someone that we don't have to go through some of the big companies and organizations to get the news, just straight direct from the people basically. So that's what it feels like. It feels very authentic when it's coming from you. So yeah, man, really enjoying the content, man. So let's get into it. One of the first questions I had was the UK economy feels in a very confusing place at the moment. Some people feel wealthy. I'm in the property space, so I'm doing a lot of property sourcing for a lot of individuals. Some are buying their first residential homes. Some are international people looking to buy hotels in London. There's a lot of different things happening, but it feels quite confusing because some people are looking and feeling like they're wealthy, and some people feeling like they're broke or even poor. So how would you describe the state of the economy right now in the UK?
Yeah, I think it is pretty much what you've said. It's a tale of two stories, really. It depends who you are and where you live. And I think the UK economy gets a lot of press because of where it was 20 years ago, when it was kind of in its prime 20 to 30 years ago. And since then, you've seen on the news from from an international audience. When I'm in the US, for example, people would come up to me and say, "Oh, the UK is doing really bad. Europe as a whole is doing really bad." It's not completely like that, I guess. I mean, it depends how you look at it. Inflation is still high. I think it's around 3.8% last time I checked, which is high, but not as high as it was a couple of years ago. After COVID, you of course expect it to be really high, and since then it's fallen. Jobs, unemployment's up slightly, and it's not great numbers. I think it's over 4% now, and that's never good. So the key kind of old school macro indicators aren't good. But when you are in the UK and you see, that there are jobs and investment going into the UK in the future, and I think that's really important. And we've seen that recently with a couple of deals with the US, India. The UK still has that presence, that global power, and I think it's good and important that it sticks to that. But definitely at the moment it's tough, right? Energy prices are high. As we go into winter, people unfortunately suffer a lot. If you look at minimum wages, they're low considering other Western European countries or the US. I think I saw a stat where it's cheaper to hire someone in the UK now than it is in the Midwest of the US, or the sort of middle states, which you never really would think would happen. So definitely that minimum wage, and the people living on minimum wage or close to minimum wage, it's extremely difficult to live in this country at the moment because price of your food, groceries, rent, especially in places like London, are increasing significantly. You mentioned at the beginning of the call interest rates. They're up phenomenally high, that it makes buying a house extremely difficult. And sometimes I'm not sure, maybe we'll come to it, but whether people should buy a house or not. I get asked that question all the time.
Yeah.
Should we rent or buy?
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's difficult to look past renting.
Yeah.
So consumer confidence is low. There's public and private debt is really high. The government have high debt, and we're living in a very much a debt economy. And that's not just the UK's problem. It's definitely a global issue, but that is growing. I mean, the amount of things you can finance nowadays is worrying. So
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Do you think that some of like the underlying issues into why we're in such a bad state in the UK at the moment? I mean, again, maybe some people might consider it a good state in the UK. Do you think, number one, are we in a bad state? And what are some of the underlying issues of how we've kind of arrived here? Do you reckon?
yeah, I think Brexit, no matter how you look at it, was definitely a hit, not just for the UK but for Europe as a whole. I mean, to be part of one trading bloc, it does make a difference in terms of employment and prices of certain goods. Importing and exporting has just become more expensive for everyone. I don't think we're in as bad state as headlines make out, and headlines will always give you the extreme views on either side. But bad news sells, unfortunately. So when you pick up or you look in the local newspaper, or you go on the internet on BBC, Sky News, etc., it's always going to be headline figures that are worrying, that inflation's high, unemployment's high, etc. And I think it also is a very geographical problem in the UK. London, living here has a lot of opportunities, but living on minimum wage in London, which many people do, is almost impossible. But I think the worrying thing for the UK is the other geographical parts, the other northern cities. When you go there, the jobs are picking up, but they seem to be standard jobs, new apartment blocks going up, or the factories and the manufacturing that used to be in these places and thriving is falling. So definitely a geographical problem, which I don't think spoken enough about in the UK, is an issue. And minimum wage and living with, if you've got children, if you're living with your partner, if you're living by yourself, you both have to be earning nowadays, really, in this country to have a decent life.
Yeah. I think that's some of the issues. I mean, I'm a millennial, but I know that a lot of people that listen to this are Gen Z as well, and I think we feel a bit done by, I guess, just because we've been hit with so much. Obviously, there was COVID a couple of years ago, and now there's so many other things in regards to trying to get on the property ladder, even employment, even businesses. Although I think the UK is quite good for um, making it easy for people to set up businesses in terms of, as long as you've got an internet connection and can basically pay to register a business, you can basically get started and start making money. But there's a lot of pushback with for example, the tax, how high tax is at the moment, and that's also making it difficult for people that are wanting to stay and things like that. So I think one of the things I wanted to get into with you was some of that, to be fair, in regards to the job side. Firstly, we know that, for example, we've got stuff like AI coming into play. How are you seeing it affect people on both sides? So people that are running companies, but also, just people that are trying to get jobs, basically, as well.
Yeah, I think with AI, definitely the good outweighs the bad. And yes, AI will replace certain industries and certain jobs. But if you, for example, you mentioned starting a business in today's world, if you're in your 20s, 30s, even 40s, whatever age you are, and you want to start a business today, it's never been easier. And that a lot of that is to do with AI, right? Because I've seen apps where you can build businesses using an AI tool now through, sorry, not businesses, websites through an AI tool, right? You type in what you want to do and it will create something. Or you've got apps like Shopify where you don't need hundreds or thousands of pounds to set up a website or get a developer. Even images now, right? You can go on ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever you use, and ask it to create a video that you would have had to pay a videographer hundreds of pounds to go and film in London, for example. You can get that in seconds, and they're good videos. So marketing materials, and then having access to an audience. Yes, it takes time, but you can go online now and upload a video to your Instagram or TikTok about your business, and get free marketing essentially. If you're smart enough about the way you advertise your business, which many people can do by even going on ChatGPT and asking it how to create a good video, talk about your business. So I think that far outweighs, and don't forget, this is just the beginning, right? The way that this will go will just lower costs. Your customer acquisition costs will fall, your business startup costs will fall, and it will just make it very accessible for everybody. So I think that is good. That's the good. Then you do have some jobs that will be taken, like your admin, your HR roles, your retail and your customer service roles. We've seen in, for example, you go to supermarket, there's electronic checkouts now. Reading legal and financial documents, maybe you don't need a person to go through a 20-page document. You can get AI to summarize it. So yes, jobs will fall, but I think jobs will be created way more through businesses, new businesses starting and new industries coming.
Yeah. Do you think then the problem is more so two things, and it's probably more leaning to one thing, where like there's just a lack of education around how it's gonna be, how to utilize it basically in the new age? I mean, part of that is that people probably just don't know how much it's gonna really do in the new age, and then the other side is that sometimes I feel like in the UK we're just slow to adopt new things. We almost like to sit back and watch other places like China and America and see how they interact with things, and then go, okay, we're then gonna kind of replicate it in our own conservative way, but that we kind of need to be proactive with it. I guess AI needs to be something that everyone gets behind and says, look, all the universities in the UK needs to be like, look, this is something that's here, and how does this affect all the different subjects that we're teaching in university and things like that. But it feels like in the UK, that won't happen, and it will take us like there'll just be this long period of time where people, and in a good way for some people that are gonna, entrepreneurial, can kind of come in and kind of make a change. But for a lot of people that aren't that way inclined, they're kind of just like, what's my way to kind of fit into this new world? And if there's no education that's there to help me to navigate that, I'm kind of stuck just doing what I'm going to do now until I have a safe and secure way to kind of, move over to the new world. So would you say that's probably the biggest thing, is the education part? And then is it a thing of that we all kind of need to be entrepreneurs then in order to take advantage of AI, I guess?
I think I look at it slightly differently. The education part is definitely important, and I hope that it will come through the school system now that ChatGPT and Gemini and all the others are integrated into the education system in the UK. I think that if you're a young person listening to this podcast and you're thinking, oh, there's so many things to do with AI, where do I even start? Well, you have the internet now, right? Where you can go on YouTube, for example, TikTok if you want, whatever your platform is, and type in how do I use AI, or AI for beginners, or AI to start a business. There are thousands of videos now. So I think the onus has shifted from, yes, it should be in the education system, but also you have your own personal ability to learn yourself now, and something maybe we didn't have in our schooling system, where we could go online and see thousands of videos on how to use AI or use whatever it is. It is a very much a self-learning ability nowadays. And I think if you want to do something and you want to start a business, then the tools are there, and most people have access in the UK, if not all people, to some sort of electronic device, whether it's a laptop or phone, and they can pick it up and they can learn if they want to. And it's free. It's YouTube, TikTok, they're free apps, right?
It's true. I think something that I'm seeing as well, as much as there's a rise in the AI, and I think there's a rise in not only AI but the outsourcing of jobs to places like, Africa, Asia, etc. I've seen there's like been a rise in, like, especially within the last year, in a lot of people losing their jobs, being made redundant, but also a rise in skilled workers as well. I just wanted to see if that's something you've noticed as well, or have you seen anything around that side as well?
Yeah, I think especially in the UK, and what I can speak for is, Brexit, we go back to it, we did lose a lot of these type of blue collar skilled worker jobs, and they are in demand. And there's various reasons for the reasons they're in demand: builders, plumbers, electricians, etc. Because building has never been so high, especially in the UK. I mean, you go around, especially in London, you go to any borough now, not even central London, and there's a new big apartment complex going up pretty much everywhere. Working from home means that people are spending more on their homes where they live, and so they want to maybe do an extension or get a bit of plumbing work done, or electrician work done, whether these jobs in demand. I mean, getting hold of a builder nowadays is extremely tough because they're just so in demand. So in that way, it's definitely increasing. And I spoke to my friend who's a doctor, and he said that healthcare staff are increasing significantly. And you may think it might be the opposite because of things like AI, but nurses, doctors are all increasing their demand. And you look at the numbers of the NHS, and they are hiring in these areas too. So it's not just the blue collar; it's the other areas as well. We are seeing a growth.
No, 100%. I think what's so interesting when you're in the times that we're in at the moment, what used to work typically before then becomes, unproductive, and in other ways that maybe people looked down on or didn't really think was as good or as glamorized. Obviously, me being from a Nigerian background, for example, you go to university, they say to be a doctor, a lawyer, the typical stuff, and it's like, actually, if I trained to be a plumber or electrician, actually I'll be in a very good position if that was my profession, because there'll be loads of jobs to have, basically. Um, I did want to ask, going into more the property side, and I know we've spoken about Brexit. You think there's any other reasons why it's been so difficult for young adults to get onto um, the property ladder at the moment, why it's been so affordable? And are you, like you said before, you get a lot of questions about buying or renting. What are you sort of leaning towards? What's your thesis? What's your opinion?
Yeah, to answer your first question, the number one issue, especially in the UK, of why house prices are so high is supply. And The second one is because of privatization of all these big apartment blocks that go up. You see, supply is very limited, especially of housing in the UK, and especially in areas such as London. And some of that, yes, is to do with space. We're not as big a country as some in Europe and the US, especially, but the supply of houses has just not met the demand in recent years. The UK is actually very well connected. So a lot of people say to me, is it transport links, etc.? No, you can get from A to B, and especially around major cities, very easily. Supply of houses is definitely a problem. We need to build more. And that's one of the big reasons why you continually see house prices is rising. You also get big private investment, huge real estate companies, your likes of Barratt, other institutions who come and they'll build huge apartment blocks, and they'll basically take over that real estate market in the very popular areas. And when I mentioned before about the boroughs, when you mix that in with interest rates increasing because of the way the economy's gone, it then becomes unaffordable to not only buy a house because of the property price, but then pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, when you combine in that the minimum wage and the average salary in the UK and in places like London is around the 30 to 40,000 pound mark, what can you buy? Even if you're a single person, for example, and you earn 40,000 pounds a year, which is an okay salary, you can get a property value of 200,000 pounds plus a deposit, and that's not going to get you anything in London. The buying the property is the issue. Then if you manage to get the property, the mortgage is expensive because interest rates are extremely high. Most of your mortgage is going towards your interest. So what I say to people now is, I was fortunate enough to buy my property when interest rates were extremely low. I think I got my property interest rate under 2%.
Wow.
Now it's over double that.
Yeah.
And
Was that in London
when you
or outside of London?
yeah, that's in London.
Wow.
When somebody asks should we buy a property, also the sort of upbringing that you and I both had is kind of like get on the property ladder, that's success. But all it takes is a cost benefit. You open an Excel document and you say, okay, if I pay £2,000 a month in rent for 12 months, it's £24,000 a year. If I compare that to a 4% or 5% interest rate mortgage, then I'm easily paying X amount or close to that £20,000 to £24,000 in interest alone for that property.
100%.
Plus, I've lost the opportunity cost of a £50,000 deposit, which I could have used for investments or investing into the S&P if you want to be safe or whatever, and earning around 8% a year. And I can just pay somebody in a rent. And then I've got no long-term commitments. I can leave when I want. If I take a new job in Dubai next year or wherever it is, there's no long-term commitments. There's no, doing up the house. Housing comes with extremely high costs as well, because if something breaks, you've also got to fix it. It's not up to your landlord to fix it. So in my opinion, in today's age and where we are right now, I would really consider whether you need to buy over rent, because in a lot of cases, most cases now, renting actually makes more sense.
100%. I would say, just to add to that, I would definitely say that yes. So we get a lot of people that come to us and say, we want to invest in a home or buy a home, and we're always met with so many different scenarios, and we tend to see that the scenario where the worst scenario you can do now, in most cases, is if you have the access to the deposit, is just to buy a residential home and just to buy it and to sit on it. Mainly for the reason that you mentioned, and the main one is probably related to the interest rate. Once you look at what you're paying monthly, in terms of the cost benefit, is it really an asset in the short term? Yeah, you're gonna pay it down over the next 25 years. Probably more of a liability and a long term liability as well. It's not like it's a short term thing. I think where it makes sense to still potentially buy a property is if you're looking to, in our case, for example, flip a property. There's a lot of benefits, for example, with buying your residential home as a DIY project or a fix-up home. You don't pay capital gains if you end up selling it down the line. You can also obviously put down a lower deposit. There's no stress of having to complete the works over a fixed period of time, so you can take your time with it. And especially if you're buying in London, one of the only really good benefits of still buying in London is that you get really good uplift when you do, a very good and strategic refurb as well. We do a lot of like reconfiguration projects where we change the internals and add value. With those projects, nowhere else in the UK can you get an 100k, 150k, 200k uplift, but only in London in the right areas and the right postcodes. So I think if you're strategic and you want to do it correctly, then I would say maybe doing a DIY project for your first one could be good. I would even say buy to lets aren't the best at the moment. The yields are not great. But again, if you're being strategic about how you're renting out the property, for example, if you're able to do it as a potentially like an Airbnb or rent to some, as a HMO, rent to some students or rent to the council. In some cases, a lot of people are doing that as well. Social housing is on the rise as well. Then there are still good ways you can do it. And I think it's usually for people that are in a really good financial position, really strong cash flow income, whether it's from a job or business. And it's more about parking the income. And we'll get into that because I think there's a lot of people. Again, I think I saw a post from you was regarding the amount of people that are coming into the UK. It would have been maybe like a month or two ago, though, about people internationally coming to buy hotels in the UK. And actually had around that period of time a Canadian guy who's like a really big entrepreneur in Canada and has a chain of like hotels and stuff and restaurants. He was interested in buying hotels in central London as well. So I want to get your take and just your thoughts on just central London as a whole. Number one, from a place where people want to buy potentially hotels, but also just from a place of people still being attracted to wanting to buy a property there. And what's the fascination, I guess?
Yeah, no, and just on your previous point, I completely agree with that point. For investment purposes, and when you've got the right connections and network like yourself, then it absolutely does make sense if you're buying it for investment. So on that note, I totally agree with that. With central London, I feel it's a hard one because it gets all the attention, and it's a hard situation, difficult situation for the government, because if they don't allow the international investment, then the UK doesn't really have enough
Yeah.
of the money to keep it up. Like, I was at the new Rosewood Hotel yesterday,
Yeah,
and that was a 1
the
billion.
new 1 billion one. Yeah, I saw that post. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a £1 billion hotel, and it was partly funded by one of the Qatari funds. Without that Rosewood Hotel doesn't go up.
Mm.
And there was another one, a Peninsula hotel that opened up recently. I think that was the other one that was over £1 billion. I think the only two hotels that cost £1 billion plus in the UK. Again, without international investment, it doesn't happen. You have to balance that international investment with local investment. And when it comes to Zone 1, Central London, you kind of need that because you can't make everything affordable. Some things will have to just stay expensive, unfortunately, in no other words. I disagree with that point maybe in further boroughs of London, like you're talking Zone 4, Zone 5, where you get a lot of that international private investment and you have empty apartments. I've been to, for example, in Ealing Broadway in West London. A lot of those apartments are owned by individuals and funds in Asia.
Mm.
And you go there and half the apartments have been bought, but they're empty. They're just sat empty because they're
Wow.
just investment.
Yeah.
London is one of the safest, if not the safest place to park your money.
Yeah.
We have a stable government.
Yeah.
We have a stability on our streets.
Yeah.
There's no chance, and it might sound silly, but there's very little chance of things like civil war, although we can debate how that could be coming quite soon. But it's a relatively safe place. It's got good healthcare, it's got good services, and it's time zone zero. It's English speaking, and so all these things make it attractive for international investors to have and park safe money,
Yeah.
and it has good tax laws for
Yeah.
internationals,
Yeah.
which has lowered a little bit recently, but overall it's still pretty good. So I think central London will always need to have that investment from outside, and it's important, to keep up the image of central London because it gives way more than just apartment blocks, tourism, etc., and it gives a lot to the UK economy.
Yeah. Do you think that UK maybe then need to be a bit more creative about different ways they're attracting um, international investors, or just in general incentivizing business owners and entrepreneurs here to engage, and continue to pour into it, because that's the only kind of selling point. Then at some point, don't they run out, or do they just then spread that out towards more other areas of the UK? Do they start making more investments into other cities like Birmingham or Manchester or stuff like that? Or what's your
Yeah, I think definitely other cities, and it's a really big point, and it's talked about so much, but it's just these deals that are struck. If I was in government and I had a relatively good position, the one thing I would be trying to do is when I strike these deals or make deals, I would give such good incentives for international firms to come and set up in the likes of Birmingham, Manchester, all the way up to Scotland, all the way down to Portsmouth, Southampton, because these cities are pretty much they're not left to zero. The city centres are getting investment, but outside of that
Yeah,
small city centre,
100%.
you go to Birmingham and it's sad to see. So I was in Birmingham recently, and actually the city centre has improved,
Yeah,
but it's because a new apartment block's gone up
yeah,
or a couple of restaurants have gone. It's not because the government have told, you know what, to okay, it's unlikely to happen, but Apple, come and set up a small factory in here. We'll give you so many incentives. We can be your European distributors, and we can, we've got all of the skilled workforce already. We're English speaking. We're time zone zero. All these things I've spoken about.
such a good idea. Yeah,
They should be attracting that investment like they did a very long time ago with Jaguar Land Rover near Birmingham, and it created a lot of jobs. And I don't know why we don't push for that, even if it means that they get tax relief, subsidies, whatever it is for an X number of years. The benefit of hiring all those people, paying tax, increasing skilled
yeah,
workforce, pushing the multiplier effect
yeah.
of hiring these people will far outweigh the breaks that they get on tax. So
100%.
to me, I don't know why they do it. It's such an obvious thing.
That's such a
Yeah.
no-brainer. That's such a no. I mean, for me, even for me personally, I'm from London originally, but I moved to Birmingham, and I went here for university firstly, went back to London, and ended up coming back. And it's always been like a second home for me. Like, London always been my first home, but Birmingham's always been second home for me. And it's always been interesting to see the progress from when I first came when I was in university till now, and it's been such a change. And it usually starts obviously, as we know, in the city centre, but also now when I look at the outskirts, in places like, for example, Dudley, or even if it's other neighbouring areas such as like Perry Bar, Ellington, some of these smaller areas that didn't get any investment before, you're starting to see new shopping centres, new business parks being built, and things like that. And I feel like for young people who are probably in London thinking, I'm still staying at home, I'm still living with parents, or I'm having to do shared apartment or shared flat or whatever. But you go into places like Birmingham or Liverpool, Manchester, you're able to have your own home. You feel a bit more like an adult, and you're probably in a better position to start a family as well, and feel a bit more comfortable about yourself. So it's interesting why like that's not happening. Why are the government incentivizing some of these organizations to come in, set up base in some of these cities, and also integrate with the some of the universities? I think that would be a big play as well. If they can integrate, for example, I think Birmingham's got about 4, 5, or maybe even 6 different universities, all clustered in and around the city. It's not a massive city, in and around the same place. If they're to integrate and say, okay, you're going to collaborate with these 2 universities on a technology program that's going to allow people to then get jobs, it's just a no-brainer. All the integration would then make sense. People would also want to stay in the city, invest in the city, and things like that. So it's quite interesting that you say that. The other thing that I'm seeing as well, a big trend as well, is obviously people moving. I'm seeing a lot of people. I think they said 10,000 millionaires moved to Dubai last year, but even more than that. I don't know if that's about young people, but I know there's a lot of young people that are constantly now moving to the UAE or America. What's your thoughts on that as well? Is it a bad sign for the UK? Is it a good thing for those young people? What's your general thoughts around the moves?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts on this. I think there's definitely the grass is always greener mentality,
Mm,
where it's quite easy in the UK sometimes to get down with wages and the weather for sometimes, um, and think, okay, Dubai. You see these things online, and it does look great.
mm,
And I've been to Dubai a few times. Great place to work. But it's not always going. You're not always going to go to Dubai, and not everyone's going to be able to go to Dubai and get a high paid job.
yeah, yeah,
And you have to live in Dubai for a certain number of years, which people don't realize, to not pay tax in the UK. So it's not like you can go to Dubai, work 1 year, and then just come back to the UK. Well, you can do that, but you're still going to have a lot of tax issues. And it is growing. It's growing phenomenally. but it's growing from other countries too. A lot of people from other countries go to Dubai. The problem is that in the UK, the wages don't stretch as far as the lifestyle, so that's a big problem. Whereas in Dubai, if you're earning a lot of money and you're not paying much tax, and that part there is if. I mean, I wouldn't move to Dubai for a same salary or a low salary as I'm getting here, because Dubai is also expensive, and it's getting more expensive as it grows. Um, but I think it's more the frustration, with the limited higher paid jobs in the UK, and the people also just want something a bit new. So I think it's a bit of a trend, and it will probably continue for a few years. We're now seeing the same thing in Saudi Arabia. Somebody said to me now the other day that Saudi Arabia is the new Dubai, where people who moved to Dubai 5-10 years ago, maybe before that, are now shifting to investing in Saudi because it's the next big thing.
Yeah.
And maybe that is true.
Yeah.
And working in Saudi Arabia maybe the next big thing. But it's all personal circumstances. It's also a different lifestyle. It's different culture. It's a different way of living. Some people love it and they've moved there. But I also know a few people who've made the return back to the UK.
Yeah.
So I think when you think of UAE and other countries, great countries, but it's all personal circumstances. And one thing I'd also say on this is it's always better to be in a country that's actually going through a rough time and the eyes aren't on it as much, because the eyes will come back on the UK and London, pretty sure of that, in our lifetime. So building something here now where the government incentives are higher than they would be when an economy is booming, when you can maybe start a business or get, network and try and find a job that may have been taken by somebody else who may have moved to Dubai, for example. So when a economy is going through a downturn, that is the greatest opportunity. When an economy is high, everyone's there creating businesses, but there are so many incentive programs that for new businesses in the UK that you can, if you have a good idea and it's going to boost the economy, you can pitch it to your local council or your local government and try and do it. So there is that too.
Yeah. I think definitely spoken like a true like UK economist is what I'll say with that one, with that comment. But I think something that I've noticed as well, which I think, and I like that point, and I like that perspective as well, because even as a young person myself, who's obviously making a lot of big decisions now about next stages of life, i.e., where would you move, where would you want to start a family, all those sorts of things. I am obviously considering a lot of different things, but being in the UK as well, I'm sort of 50-50 in the sense where, and probably more 80-20 in favor of sort of staying in the UK at the moment. And that's just probably because, like you said, when things are tough and when, there's recession and there's people are struggling, there tends to be a lot of opportunities. And there are quite a lot of opportunities that I'm seeing out there. And we can probably get into a few of them. One of them I'm seeing is social housing. I'm seeing that, for example, is something that a lot of people within my space are getting into. Previously, the strategy was to buy homes and to rent them out to students, professionals, up north, usually to get higher yields, or you're either developing properties or doing different things. But there are a lot of incentives. There was even someone yesterday, the first billionaire in the UK from housing immigrants. I don't know if you saw that as well. But yeah, showing that there's different opportunities. It's more about looking at things differently. I think is the opportunity at the moment. I think that's what the opportunity is. Is like things are so unfamiliar to everybody around AI, around how to do things anymore, that people are going to do well if they can actually just figure out how to maneuver in this new time and this new space. I wanted to get onto some global politics. I know Trump came into the UK the other day. Did you follow it? Did you follow what he was saying when he came? I'm not really a big Trump supporter, but did you follow what he did when he came, or what was the conversation that he was?
Yeah. I think my view on this has always been, no matter what people think of Donald Trump and the US and all of that stuff, if he is the president, then we need to get on with the president, and we need to have a good relationship with the US. It's definitely our biggest partnership that we have, because the US is still the number one economy in the world. And when you go there, they have all very much an entrepreneurial mindset. It's actually, when you're in the US, you feel a lot easier to build a business because everyone's doing it,
100%.
and everyone's sort of in that mindset and has that culture, which I'd love to get more in the UK. So, politics aside, we need to get on with the US president. And I think having that, I think they when he came here, before he came here, rather, when he first got elected, and Keir Starmer the PM went to the US, he did a very smart thing because he played to that. And he knows that Trump, for example, has a history. I think his grandmother was born in the UK, maybe Scotland. And he has a big like for the royals. So, when I don't know if you saw it, when he handed him the royal invitation, that kind of buttered him up. And then when he came here, he was the first president to get 2 royal state visits. And they showed him a good time. And on the back of it, they announced a £150 billion investment into the UK, which is a huge amount of money. And it's one of the bigger deals that has been done with the US and UK. And also we struck a deal when Keir Starmer went to the US. So it's things like defense, AI, and energy. So the defense is obviously spoken about a lot. AI and energy are really important for the UK, and it's something that the US rather, can really help with. But another point, and it's interested in the wider geopolitical spectrum, where India, Russia, and China met recently, and the US has had a bit of a dispute with India recently, for example, and is saying, we need to. He's increased the cost of visas, etc., and he wants to build a lot of those jobs in the the US. But he also mentioned that we should invest in the US and stop outsourcing as much to other countries and start building those type of jobs here again. So those relationships are really important. But the thing with geopolitics is it changes weekly, and these things, his mindset, and like you've seen, can change week after next. So you kind of never know
100%.
with the relationship.
100%. But I think it's good. I think you're right. I think no matter what people think about him, he's in power, and he's the leader of the biggest economy in the world at the moment. Building those relationships, building those opportunities over to the UK is going to be important. Let's see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see. I want to get into some of the winners and losers of the business at the moment. I know some of your content, why I like it is obviously it gives us insight into stuff that we might not be aware of. I know there was a post recently you spoke about black cabs going out of business in the UK, which is quite sad because they're like a staple for sort of London and central London specifically. But like what businesses are you seeing? What other businesses or other things are you seeing dying at the moment? I will get into some of the opportunities and some of the things that you think might be coming about soon. But what are the stuff, or what are some of the businesses that you see dying or jobs at the moment?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word dying, but I definitely think things that I've seen a slightly more downturn is, for example, luxury goods, more on the clothing side. Revenues are down for some of the big companies like Louis Vuitton, Burberry, and it's because of a change in consumer behavior. You still, of course, have the X percent, maybe the 0.5 to 1% of people who will always buy that sort of thing because spending £2,000 on a jacket is daily interest for them, and so it's not a big deal. But you also used to get a lot of sales from the middle earners too, these luxury brands. And what you're seeing is, instead of those middle earners, and especially younger generation, spending money on a new Burberry coat, they're saving that £2,000 and going to Southeast Asia for 2 weeks, because we're living more in an experience-led world rather than a physical good world. So we for example, used to get satisfaction from going to the shopping mall, and I don't know about you, but I used to love doing that, going and buying a new game or a new I don't know, pair of shoes or whatever. But now it's turned into travel and doing experiences rather than that. And so travel industry has grown as a byproduct of that, but things like physical retail, especially on the luxury goods side, has fallen. So I'd say that's one of the big ones. And then probably on the flip side of that is things like not just travel but experiences. When you go to your local shopping mall now, you don't just have a just stores everywhere, retail stores. You have a Sixes cricket or automated darts, because these places are driving audiences into shopping malls, so that when people go to a shopping mall, it's not just to buy stuff. You can also have a day out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think and it's happening everywhere. It's happening in the city of London, where you wouldn't expect it. They're building I know the Fair Game, that's the name, where you have like an arcade that's open, a huge square foot location would cost a lot of money, but they know the demand's there. So those type of things are growing significantly.
No, those points are really, really key and really resonate as well. Because I remember even the other day I went to eat in central London. It was like an Asian restaurant, but I remember straight after that we went to the F1 arcade, and we was there for the duration of the evening. And within that place, there's obviously the games and stuff, but there's a bar, there's food. But then you end up spending a lot of time there and being able to kind of catch up with your friends there as well. And it's also quite true to the fact that people, I think, the younger generation are less interested in spending money on like designer goods or things that are expensive, but more rather go away for the weekend or go to a festival or things like that. So I'm definitely seeing that day to day with people as well. So it's interesting that that's come up. The last bit of the interview, I did want to talk about some of the ways that you think people should invest. And you kind of alluded to it before, but buying a property might not be the best way for people to be investing their money, maybe in their mid 20s, 30s, or even 40s. What are you seeing as some of the alternatives for people, or that are, for them to do? Not necessarily from advice from yourself, but just what you're observing as how people are growing their money now these days.
Yeah, I think again it all depends on risk appetite. I think it's always good to have money stored in safer assets, so your ISAs or your funds, particular funds that have seen good performance over the last couple of years, that are relatively safe stocks. But I wouldn't know where to start on cryptocurrency, because I never cover it. I don't get involved in it, so I have no idea about any of that stuff. But I think it's really important to not have too much pressure
Yeah.
when you're in your 20s, especially, because there is that pressure of, okay, my friend X person's bought a house, or he or she's doing this and this, and I'm not. And then you start to get that pressure. But for example, if you can live at home in your early 20s and you're happy to do that, then do it, because you're saving on what we've just spoken about, huge amounts of rent and buying a property, and you can save up. So I think it's good to balance, enjoying yourself,
Yeah.
but having a percentage saved away, and routine's really important. And there are so many personal finance people out there that give structures on how to do certain percentages, and save. But I think the key thing is, from a mental health point of view as well, don't have that pressure on yourself too much. If anyone's listening and they're younger, and it's like, this person's done this, don't compare yourself to people. Do what you want to do, obviously reasonably, and try and have an X percentage every month that you don't even think about, that just goes to a savings or whatever your risk appetite is, and enjoy it, because you can now, like we've said, do so many things. You can start, if you want to start a business. Not everyone wants to start a business, but if you want to start a business, you can do it easily now. And there's so many tools and items out there, but you need to balance a lifestyle where there's not too much pressure. And I think sometimes we speak online, myself, other people might sound like there's a lot of pressure, but I just want to make it clear that I don't think you should have too much pressure especially in your early 20s, to do all this stuff.
No, 100%. I think one thing you get to realize when we help a lot of people that are investing their funds, and a lot of them just took their time and played a long game, and you know invested in their future early. There was a lot of time. There's obviously success stories that sound really glamorous and stuff like that, but a lot of it is quite boring, to be fair. It's just more about consistency and discipline as opposed to anything else. So yeah, I think that's some really, really good advice. I think the last,
There'll always be, so I was just going to say, there'll always be chapters in everyone's life, right, where you go through good times and you go through bad times, whether it's financial, whatever it is, right? But actually the good times are easy, but it's how you react during the bad times, and then that's when you'll learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
So maybe if someone lost a job or whatever happened in their life, is how you come out of that. And I think that's even more important, especially in your 20s, figuring that out first, because you can then, once you've answered some of those questions and learned about yourself, later on you can easily use those skills to build something really successful.
100%. I think even adding on that as well, I think one of the things that I always been looking at recently a lot is obviously with a lot of the changes that happen into the world, as we mentioned, the AI, loss of white collar jobs, so many different things are happening. I think one thing that I think can be really useful to do is just looking at doing a self assessment on yourself and seeing what actually you have already that you can use and as an advantage to maneuver into the new world. Sometimes we end up just kind of following the shiny coin kind of syndrome and kind of following whatever's kind of looks good or and trying to kind of jump on the next thing to make yourself a millionaire. But I think actually looking at the skill sets you have, the connections you have, the contacts you have, everything you have already to see how you can move in the next steps. Definitely trying to balance that out between living life, having experiences, and also being quite intentional to make progress as well. I think it's definitely key. So that's a good point. I guess the final questions are around: do you think people should be saving, investing, or starting businesses at the moment? Or are you advising to kind of have a balance of all three at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I never give personal advice. So whatever I say, I think is general. But again, it depends on what the person wants. Because if some people want to do a business, some people will do a business because they think it's a cool thing to do, and they don't really want to do a business, but they'll do it because they think they'll make loads of money.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. I think business is hard. It's difficult. You might see people need to realize that success stories are very much highlighted on social media, and our life, unfortunately or fortunately, is dictated significantly by social media in today's world. And you'll always only really most of the time see a highlight reel of a business that, I don't know, hit their 1 million in sales mark or whatever it is, and it'll be highlighted all over social media. The grind to get there won't be highlighted much.
Yeah.
So you have to have it within you, that the person, whoever it is, to want to be able to do your business or invest or whatever it is that they want to do, even if a job that they want to take. You have to be willing to do it, because everything is difficult, and to be successful, the grind is extremely hard, and you will face way more days of unsatisfactory unsatisfactory days over good days. So you know, and social media exemplifies that a million times more than it was even 20 years ago. So I think, you know, just being aware of these things, and I always say, and it doesn't work for everyone, but I like to, apart from my social media, I like to, you know, work in silence and do things. When I first started my social media, very close to certain family and friends, I didn't tell anyone, and I don't think you should do that. But I just started. In fact, some people didn't even know it was me until I hit like 50,000 followers who were quite close to me, and like, is that you? And I was like, yeah, that's me, because I enjoy just working in silence. Because once people find out about what you're doing and they know what you're doing, then that pressure starts off. When's you get this? When's you going to get that? So my view on that is, you know, work in silence. I think I don't shout about everything all the time. I think that's the best.
No, that's some good advice. I think the last question I have was around just the future, really. I mean, if you could go into a crystal ball, look in the future, maybe even just 10 years from now, what are you seeing in the future UK economy in general? What are you seeing? So some of the stuff you're seeing.
Yeah, I think we're at a pivotal time in. I was listening to a podcast the other day where he was explaining that things change every 80 years, and we're at that mark where it's around that time where AI is coming in, is kind of like the next phenomenon. I can't sit here and say this is going to happen because I actually have no idea in terms of where it's going to go. But I think what you said is really important at the beginning of the podcast, is you need to learn and educate yourself no matter what you're doing nowadays. Even if you're a builder, for example, who may not think that they have any care about AI, you need to just have that knowledge and understand, at least to a minimum, how these tools work and how you can utilize it in your daily life. So when the future happens, that you are set up and you understand it and you've not fallen behind. And like we said, there's so many resources. You don't need to go and pay someone £1,000 to teach you about AI. You can watch a half an hour YouTube video for free. In terms of where I think the UK is going, again, it's tough because it's at a tension right now. It seems between a bit of a divide in the country, like other countries, which new where the even who's going to be in charge of our country at the next election is up for grabs. Nobody knows, right? And they have very extreme views on either side. That will be a big part of what happens in the future. So I think to safeguard against all that, you need to take these measures so that you're protected either way, and maybe you've built something to sort of counteract that. But I do still think the UK is a really good place to live. I'm very bullish on it, especially in where I live. I can only speak for London, but I'm sure other cities as well. And it will always be a place that, you know, everyone loves, whether they love visiting or living here is a different matter. Most people loves London, whether it's either of those. And so I think it will always be a place that will continue to grow. So you do well by focusing on the UK pretty much always, especially in our lifetime.
100%. Thank you so much, man, for the podcast. I've been trying to lock you in for a little while actually, so I'm glad I finally got to lock in. I think you're the sort of person, if I'm being honest, I think there'll be multiple check-ins within a year. I think you'll be someone that I want to just catch up with, in a couple of months, just to see get your thoughts on what's happening and what you think's happening as well. So really appreciate you coming, and obviously good luck with all the stuff that you're doing at the moment. Do you want to just plug your socials as well, just in terms of your page and things like that?
Yeah. Just before that, thank you as well. I think it's been a really good conversation, and it's really good that we have these conversations. And anytime I'm always up for talking with you. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, @AshT_talks, and the same on YouTube, actually, I think. So everything's Ash.
Are you on YouTube now? You're on YouTube now, yeah?
Well, it's mainly just shorts at the moment, but I am trying to figure out how to maybe pivot into long form. But
I want to see how that turns out actually.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned, and then just continue listening. So stay blessed, stay invested. Peace.
Take care.
Yeah, that should be.